It is Latin. I hear that they teach Latin at Lakeview. They did not teach Latin at my high school, so I had to look that one up. We then find salvation, which is actually a Greek word. I didn't learn that in high school. I got to learn that in college, in seminary. It's all Greek to me. Greek is not my favorite language, but I do know that salvation is sozo, which means either to heal or to save. I want to hold on to that one. And finally, gospel. Gospel comes from a Greek word that means good news, which is why so often you hear in the assurance of pardons that we say, hear the good news of the gospel. Because again, gospel is kind of a churchy word. So what is the salvation of humankind, the good news of that salvation for humankind, and how does John 3 teach us about that? About who we are supposed to be and what we are supposed to do. How does John 3 fit into this? First of all, God created the world, and it was considered good. That is the first part of the gospel message, the good news message. For God so loved the world, John 3 says. For God so loved the world. So I wonder, what is good about the world? Where do you see the goodness of God in our midst? And maybe, where do you struggle? God in creation created all things, the water, the air, the galaxies. He created plants and animals and called them good. And then created us, it said. Male and female, he created them. He created them in God's image, it says. And although the creation is over and over again, this repetition of the fact that the world is created good, Jesus reiterates this in John 3. So often we as Christians believe that it's about the a flare-up, and I was unable to move. I was unable to pick up my arm, let alone my children that desperately wanted me to, and I found myself in bed 2 or 3 nights, quite early, with ibuprofen, with icy hot, with massage tools to try to work on my back, and ibuprofen and medicine to try to help me sleep. And I confess, as I'm working through John 3:3, as I confess that I'm looking at this written into the church, it was an afterthought to pray. My first default was my medicine and my sleep and my massage and my icy hot. We are people that are in need of saving, and sometimes our culture helps us forget that. So I'm here instead of here because I'd rather remember at least this. We have a habit of putting on our best face to try to look perfect for the world. Put our profile, if you are a Facebook user, the best foot forward and not to be open about our brokenness. No, I'm not someone that thinks that you should just put out everything for anybody for public consumption. But there is something true about knowing that we are in need of saving. For God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. We are in need of saving. We are sinful and need to remember that we are in need of saving. A very good friend of mine, he was a preacher south of Pittsburgh who was a seminary classmate, preached a sermon, and I don't remember his text, but I remember this illustration. And trust me, we don't remember all of our sermons, let alone every sermon that we've ever heard. But this one stuck out to me. My friend was told by a doctor that if he did not change radically his lifestyle,